my name's Ella.
Hi, my name's Eloise.
Hi, my name's Evie.
Hi, my name's Yaz.
And we are experts by experience, which essentially means that we have struggled with our mental health and come out the other side, and now we're looking to help people listen to this podcast.
On today's episode, we're going to be discussing after discharge and the struggles and things that helped us get through it.
It's essential that if you're listening to this and feel vulnerable at any point, you speak to those around you and make the most of the support you do have. Now let's get into it.
So I know when you get discharged, you are rarely fully recovered. It's often just a stepping point in your journey. You have more skills than you did when you entered. Whatever service you were using, whether that was like hospital, specialist unit or community, and it can be really difficult to then go from such intensive support to less support, that's at least what I found. And I think it's also going from like such a closed little bubble where everything's sort of done for you or you're very much supported to being a bit more independent. I don't know what you guys think, but I really struggled with that.
Yeah, I think even doing kind of simple stuff like, I don't know, like doing your washing or like getting the bus is quite difficult when you first like leave hospital, because you've kind of, like Ella said, you've gone for this hyper controlled environment to suddenly having the freedom. So I think that's why it's important to kind of use those around you still, that they can support you even though it's not that kind of intensive support. There's still people there around you, and it's important to remember that.
And I guess like adjusting to not being in the very rigid set environment of a hospital or whatever, there's less restrictions for you. You've got a lot of freedom, and you might be going back to an environment that you were unwell in or you became unwell in, and that can be so difficult for some people. I know I really struggle going back to my old bedroom, but something that helped me was I completely redecorated it, and I didn't repaint everything, but pretty much every square inch of my walls were covered in posters and pictures, and a lot of it was of friends and family, people I loved, and it really became my safe space.
One thing I think that it's all about is finding your own routine. You're trying to get yourself into a routine that you make instead of being forced into a routine by other people, and I think that's one main thing, that it takes time to make a routine that you're comfortable with, but after a while you do get used to it and it really helps you.
I think a big part of after discharge is being honest with, firstly, like family, because obviously they're the main people that you're going to be like with and surrounded with, and that are going to be supporting you. Friends as well, but also professionals, because at the end of the day they are trying to help you, and there's no point in like trying to convince them of something that isn't actually happening. So yeah, just making sure that you're honest with them about how you're feeling, how you're doing, and just so that they can provide you with any extra support that you may need.
Only ever really helped me when I spoke, and I know not everyone can speak to their family because that's not how it works for everyone, but realistically, if you're lying to your therapist, you have someone helping you, a carer, I understand that is so much easier said than done not to lie, but having that sense of not being like the lack, if you're deceiving someone, they will never be able to help you to the extent you need. Say you said I'm doing fine, you may not be getting as much therapy. It could go down to fortnightly when really you still need the weekly, or you won't get carers in when you need help to prepare your meals or to get out of bed and get dressed and get ready and things like that. So definitely being honest, like Eloise said, is such a big part.
I think, like with me, I spent so long kind of lying to professionals and kind of not lying intentionally, but almost fabricating stories and kind of changing what was actually happening, and it just kept me stuck for so long. I think any professional that worked with me thought that I was a very good liar because they believed me genuinely.
Oh, yeah.
But I literally, I spent so long just not telling the truth, and it just kept me held back. And actually, when I look back now, I think it would have been so much. Although in the moment it was so hard to do that, it would have been so much easier and would have kept my journey so much more simpler if I'd have just been honest. But I understand that that's so difficult, but that's kind of one thing I want to get across in this podcast, is just to be like, use that support and be honest with people around you.
I mean, honestly, the tales I spun could be Roald Dahl over here. Couldn't think of a better author there. But
Jacqueline Wilson?
Well, her book's traumatised us is good.
One thing that I found is before I was in hospital, I've always been very theatric. I've been doing dancing, singing, acting, and obviously when it comes to being in hospital, there's a lot of rules surrounding dancing, especially was one of my main things. So coming out of hospital immediately, that's what I wanted to get back to, and it was quite daunting. But knowing that I still had my performing arts group to go back to, and they were so welcoming, and it was almost like I hadn't left, and it helped me massively just to have those people that I didn't relate to being in hospital to. They were just started fresh. I knew them from before, so it was almost like back in when I was
like Evie with the eating disorder.
Yeah.
You were the amazing dancer, the great theatre person, the singer. Like, I think it's nice to have a hobby that separates you from your mental health illness.
Yeah, I think when you are discharged, that's like when you can start to create like a personality, like Ella said, like outside of an eating disorder, and kind of find the things that make you you, and also, like Evie said, like find hobbies that help you, and that could be anything. Also, it's important to like keep distracted for sure, and find things that you enjoy doing. Because that helped me massively.
So my little hobby that became a bit of an obsession, I've spoken or I've written about it before in CAMs, newsletters and stuff, but I am a big plant person. It helped me get out of bed to look after something other than myself. Even if I didn't feel like I was ready for the day, I still had to, give the plants a little water, check the leaves, and then I started getting a bit more into it. Learning how to repot them and propagate them and things like that and then I became Ella the crazy plant lady, which is much nicer than Ella the crazy person. Exactly, still am. To this day I have hundreds of plants. But it's something that really reignited this like joy in life and looking after things, and then I'd like going out to look for more plants, and I'd go on like Facebook Marketplace runs to try and find someone in Brighton who had a rare plant that I could get, and it just became something so special for me.
I think one thing with me, I think because I was in hospital for so long and kind of using services where I wasn't able to kind of connect with the outside world, I really got into kind of studying and doing my schoolwork, and that was a big motivator for me to get out, and it still is. And so it's not necessarily a hobby, but for me, and I know that everyone's not academic or enjoys those kind of things, but for me, I kind of liked it as a challenge that I kind of enjoyed looking at kind of my education. And one of the things that I focused on was getting back to college, and that kind of, it not only allowed me to be able to do things further on in life, like get my A-levels and get my GCSEs and everything, but it also allowed me like socially and able to kind of, make a new friendship group, and now, we love going out and doing things that we shouldn't be doing, and all that stuff, and like, it's like, that's like a normal thing, and it's again, like you were saying, it's not like you're Yaz the person with an eating disorder, you're Yaz the person that,
Has a good time when you're
with
with
has
her.
a good time when you're with her, yeah.
Redacted.
Yes.
Going on from Yaz's point, I feel it was very different because I went from being in secondary school before I was admitted to then after I was applying to go to college. So it was very difficult to see the change, but then it was almost like a fresh start, so it felt better. I felt better within myself knowing that I didn't have to go back to the school where I almost got ill, and it was just all new.
And so I struggled throughout most of my teenage years, so it affected like my GCSEs, my A-levels, but it's something that really stands out to me is a few bad grades. I mean, I love studying now, but when I was ill, I used to study until I was more ill.
Yeah.
And there's
me
a lot
too.
of a lot of people with like very restrictive subtypes or
Perfectionistic
tendencies. There you go. None of us can
say
say that. It can be a hyperfixation, but I want to say that even if you don't take a conventional route, even if you don't do as well as you wanted to in your GCSEs, A-levels, etc., there is always a way that you can achieve your goals. So I'm now doing a neuroscience degree, and I wasn't in hospital that long ago in relative to it was during my A-levels. And I think now, wow, if only I could go back and say, you know what? You didn't get an A in chemistry, your life's not over. You're doing neuroscience at the uni you wanted, and chemistry does kind of suck.
Yeah, whereas for me, like, I definitely haven't taken the conventional route. Like, I dropped out of college about 3 times. I, like, went to one college, dropped out, went to another one, dropped out, and then went to another one, changed courses, and then now I've dropped out of that one as well. But, like, I think there's a lot of pressure on academic things, and obviously, like, if that's something that you enjoy, then that's great. And if that's something that is rewarding to you, then that's great. But for me, like, I took my GCSEs at home. And it's really difficult, and I think when you're struggling with a mental illness and then there's that added pressure, it's just like makes it such a burden.
100%, and especially when the world is telling you, I mean, even the government at the moment are saying you have to do an English baccalaureate, which means they're forcing you to do more academic subjects. I think there's a massive loss on, I mean, like, people now who are in higher up jobs, when our parents were our age, you know, they didn't necessarily take conventional routes, but now they have these amazing jobs. And I think there is so much pressure, like, on us as young individuals to A-levels, uni, perfect job, work your way up the job ladder, 9 to 5, when really there are so many different opportunities now. And I think the fact that you dropped out a few times doesn't mean you're any less than me taking a conventional route. If anything, it means you might find something you absolutely adore on your 4th try or your 5th try, or you'll do an apprenticeship or something that will in the end suit you so much better, and you will still end up super happy.
I think that's so important as well, like thinking about your motivations. And I think when I was in hospital, it was very much, I found motivation was helpful, and I still do to this day, to be honest. Like, but when I was in hospital, it was more like sort of just going out for the weekend or whatever, and now it's kind of moving on beyond that, and it's kind of now I'm hoping to go to uni and become a children's nurse, and that's kind of what I'm aiming for. And I think that using whatever your motivation is, whether it's through education or whether it's through a hobby or an activity, or whether it's just through something that you enjoy, I think that it can really help kind of keeping that motivation. And it doesn't matter how, like, long term or short term it is. If that's something that gets you through, I don't know, a day or a tricky moment, then, you know, use that and utilize that and make that the reason that you're recovering and you're keeping your life going.
100%. And sort of moving on to, you know, how it helps you distract yourself, and like when the days are hard. So it might not just be having hobbies, but, you know, maybe you have little goals. I don't know, mine used to be silly. I used to reward myself with something on Vinted because I'm a chronic Vinted addict, or I'd, you know, go to Waterstones and treat myself to a new book. But little things like that, not being scared to, like, buy things for yourself and make you are valuable. And if you are able to, not trying to just sort of, like, I know I struggled with being able to buy myself things and being kind to myself, so to speak. And that's not necessarily material objects, but it could just be, you know, buying a nice body scent or something that meant that I felt good when I went out. And so I don't know if anyone else had that.
I still do.
You deserve it. Like, what I want to say is that you deserve it. You know, your mental health issue or whatever, your brain's going to tell you that you don't deserve these nice things, and it's like, it's just rubbish, because it's like, you do deserve it, and you deserve to be happy. And that's what we kind of want to get across in this podcast, is that we're all living such better lives because we've chosen a different pathway from just living in hospital. And it's not necessarily that was easy.
Oh no,
but it was so much. I know I can speak for myself, but it was the right decision, and I'll choose it a million times.
Exactly. And now I get to have 9 reward tattoos that all mean things. So another thing that had a really big effect on me when I was discharged was the fact that I was actually living a real life. And I know that sounds so weird, but, you know, you walk to the post office, you pop here and there, you run some errands, you go out with your friends. And compared to being very sedentary in hospital, because, you know, that's what's best for your health at the time, it meant that my meal plan had to increase. And as someone with an eating disorder, or if, you know, other aspects of mental health, something changes and that makes you uncomfortable, it can be really, really challenging, because not only is it a scary change, but you no longer have the support that you did in place, or as intensive support as you did in hospital. So it's really finding ways to manage those really strong emotions to prevent, like, relapse or having a really bad day, negative thoughts that can then spiral. I don't know about any of you guys, but I remember, I mean, God, my meal plan, it's gone to the wind. Like, when I think about it, I don't even remember it, and I know for a fact that it's on nothing what I have now. And it now obviously it doesn't bother me because I'm in a better place. But I remember when I did have to change it, I was terrified, and I don't know like how you guys felt.
I think like with one thing is that like I want to say that like your life's not going to end if you eat more than a meal plan. Like, I was so scared of doing that, and now, like Ella said, like, I eat so much more than probably what I was prescribed, in air quotes, you know, in a hospital. And also, I think with what Ella was saying, it kind of goes more generally of kind of, I think when you're going in through an admission at the first time, I know my first admission, you know, you're going in blind, so you don't know what to expect or what to communicate to the people around you, and it can kind of be intimidating because, you know, they're all these scary professionals who are just telling you what to do. But I think you have to use yourself as an agent within your own treatment and kind of communicate. So that's one thing I'd say, is to communicate that, you know, perhaps you are going to be doing more, and then for maybe them to allow you to do that, and then see how that goes while you're in a monitored environment, and why you can be supported more intensively in a hospital or a unit.
Yeah, I think it's just very important to remember that a meal plan is like a minimum, because I know for me, like, even though I wasn't necessarily told this, it became a very rigid number or amount. But yeah, obviously, as Ella said, like, lifestyle changes, you're going to need more, and also, like, if you want more or you crave more or your body needs more, then that's okay and that's normal. Like, in the real world, like, you wouldn't just stick to an exact like plan for eating, like,
it's not feasible, is it? You can't plan if Tesco has the exact sandwich you want in the meal deal if a load of hungry other students have gone.
And that also goes hand in hand with a routine, because like Eloise said, you've developed that into your daily routine. You've got that meal plan with the certain times that you've got to eat, and I can't stress enough, I definitely don't follow the timings at all. And
oh my god,
it's so difficult to realise that if it's like 12:30, like how I experienced, you don't have to eat lunch at 12:30. You can eat it at a different time.
Literally.
We're now going to talk about the top tips that would have helped us when we got discharged from hospital.
One thing that I felt was, when you're discharged from hospital, you may be tempted to rush back into your, like, what you used to do before hospital. I know that personally I tried to do that and it did not work. But it's important to take it one step at a time, focus on the present, and acknowledge when things do go right and not just when they go wrong.
I mentioned this in the last episode, but even though you're discharged, like, most of the healing will happen when you're, like, discharged, because, like, that's when it's independent, and that's when the most growth will happen, because you have to want recovery at the end of the day. And obviously when you're, like, in hospital or in a unit, you're being forced to do it. So
I've been struggling for a really long time. So when I was ill, I was much younger, and now I'm a lot older, so I'm obviously going to be different regardless. You know, I'm not going to have the same mindset I did a while ago. But for me, finding myself was so important. So again, hobbies, a big thing for me was finding my style. So I've got quite a few piercings. I don't know if there's going to be some sort of pictures accompanied with this, but I've got quite a lot of piercings, quite a lot of tattoos. They all mean a lot to me. I love very extreme fashion, but like super hippie, flowy 70s, or sometimes I like going the opposite direction and being kind of gothic. But I love expressing myself through the way I dress, through my hobbies, and I think that really helped me have an outlet, like a creative outlet, like a window into my soul almost. And through helping discover myself, I disassociated a bit with my eating disorder and my mental health issues and became just me. I became Ella for the first time in a long time, not my eating disorder, my mental health. And I think that's so important.
My top tip is kind of being mindful about what kind of media you're consuming. I don't want to go into one in a sociological perspective, but kind of, I think for me, from the beginning of, even before I was kind of diagnosed with my illness, even to now, I've got to be so mindful, and I wasn't for so long, about what I was viewing on social media, and kind of from extreme stuff, even to kind of more subtle stuff. I think you've got to be so mindful that what you're seeing and what you're consuming is actually helping you. And sometimes that's really hard to recognise and differentiate. And I know that was for me for so long that I just had to get rid of a lot of social media. I got rid of TikTok and I got rid of Instagram, and I was like, oh my god, I won't be able to cope. And you know what, I'm still here, I'm still standing, I'm sitting right now, but it's like, you know what, you will be fine, and you'll still be able to contact people, and it's not forever. It's just, and it might not be the right thing for you, but I know for me, the amount of stuff I was seeing that wasn't conducive to me getting better, you know, it was so much that, you know, and it's everywhere, you know, your algorithms, it is everywhere, and it's not the conventional stuff. So I would just be mindful about that and make sure that you're following accounts that, you know, are positive and actually aren't always recovery accounts. Like, I do think that kind of surrounding yourself with people that are just air quote normal can be really helpful, because it's like your world doesn't become completely in your bubble of kind of mental health and mental health recovery and illness. It's just, this is life. And, you know, like I follow loads of actresses that I love, and you know what, musicians, I love techno. I follow loads of techno musicians. German techno. Yeah.
No, and I totally agree with what you said. I mean, you don't have to stay friends with everyone you were friends with an inpatient. I found that there was a big pressure to do that. And at the point of my discharge, I distanced myself from everyone until I was in a better place, and then I could contact other individuals who are in a better place, because it can be really difficult when you see people you're in hospital with either worsening or you're getting worse and they're getting better, and there's that aspect of comparison in every competition, comparison with mental health. So me and Eloise were in a service together for a little bit, and we didn't contact each other for a while. And then when I felt I was in a good place and I stumbled across Eloise, she had a recovery Instagram account, shout out Eloise's Recovery. I went, oh wow, I'm so happy Eloise is doing well. And, you know, we met up, I came back from uni for a bit, and it's really nice surrounding yourself with the people that are a positive influence, and you shouldn't feel guilty for prioritising yourself and the people you surround yourself with, because they might not be bad people, but if they're struggling, you don't want that to impact you. And that is not you disliking them, and it's not you being horrible. That is you just taking initiative and prioritising yourself.
Preach.
So we've got some questions from young people in services right now, and I just have a couple of them to read out and we can give them a little answer. So the first one is, how did you get your life back? A little bit vague, I know, but let's see what we can touch in the time we have.
Mental health struggles are so diverse that, you know, there's not one answer, but I think one thing is, like I said before, is keeping your motivation strong. Whatever they are, they're going to be different for every single person. I said for me, you know, it started off with just being able to go out for the weekend, and now it's to go to uni and to have a great summer. I'm going on holiday with my friends in the summer to Croatia, and, you know, that's the thing that I'm looking forward to. And whatever that is for you, you know, make sure that you're keeping looking forward, and it won't. If you keep going and you keep doing the things that feel absolutely horrendous, it does get to some point where it's just is easier. And it's so hard to tell someone that when they're in the grips of it, because, you know, there's nothing that's going to make that easier. But I promise, if you go through that and you just think, you just keep chugging through it, you will be okay and you will be fine. So keep holding on to hope. That's what I'd say.
I mean, 100%. It's so important. So we've also got, do you think routines make the day easier?
For me, like, when I was first discharged, but also, like, even now, to be honest, like, it's so important for me to have routine. Like, when I was discharged, I had to keep busy 24/7, pretty much, like, no matter what it was. It also helped me to go out every day, do whatever it was. It's just, like, for me, I had to keep busy, or else my brain would be even more busy. So, yeah, I think definitely keeping routine, whatever that may be. I mean, obviously, for different people, it's going to be different because of what you enjoy and life situation.
Sometimes with routine, for me, trying not to be too rigid as well.
Yeah.
And that's so funny to say, like, keeping busy 100%.
In an autistic brain, that's very hard.
Yeah, in an autistic brain, or just somebody who has quite rigid thinking styles. Have a rough routine. Something where, okay, I want to get up between 7 and 9 if that's your aim for the day, or give yourself some grace and be okay with the fact that not every day's routine will go to plan. So you might oversleep because your body is exhausted and it needs the extra rest. That's okay, but learning to easier said than done, to adapt to the changes in your routine.
I think also being within kind of I don't want to say normal, but being out of a like kind of rigid routine that as often happens in a hospital or a day unit or wherever you are, it's difficult, but you've got to kind of take it as almost liberating and being like, I'm not being hyper controlled, and using that to your advantage and being like, I could do anything fun that I wanted to do today. And especially if you're first not being discharged and you're going back into education, you can be like, I can use this day for whatever I want to do, and that, I think that's exciting.
100%. And our last question is, how did you cope with going back into education?
This is one of the big topics that I like to touch on in any discussion that I have around discharge. Personally, I went from being in secondary before in hospital to then being in college. And as I said earlier on in the episode, it felt almost like a fresh start, and you're meeting new people, but at the same time, it can be very daunting to anyone, even going back into education that you were in before. But
100%.
Going back into education honestly really helped me, because especially going from secondary where you had set subjects you had to do to going up into college where I just basically got to do what I want to do. And another thing that I say is it's okay to drop out. Currently I'm not in college anymore, I've dropped out. I am looking to start again, but you just need to accept that it's not your time then, and your time you don't have a time frame. You can go at your own pace.
And speaking on like timescales, I'm just finishing my first year of uni this May. I'm almost 20. I took a gap year. I had to repeat one of my A-levels years because I was in hospital a lot, and I've still ended up fine. I've still ended up where I wanted to be, where I've aimed to be. Further proving that, yes, what I did wasn't conventional, but that gap year was to help me heal the last bits of me, to learn to live and have fun and find the excitement and joy in life again. And yes, I'm older than some of my flatmates, but it's so irrelevant when you're at university, when you're at education. All they do is call me an old lady if I can't drink enough wine to catch up with them. Honestly, there is zero negative connotations with taking a bit of time out for yourself.
I don't know whether this is relevant. I don't know if it's something that you guys experienced, but it's kind of when you go back into education, people are asking where you've been, whether that's teachers or students, because people are nosy and it's really annoying. But I'd say come up with a script. I know for me, I just said I was unwell, and it kind of stops people prying. Often people actually don't care. They're just like, they move on from one thing to another. And if you say you're unwell, you're in hospital, or you were doing something else, if you don't feel comfortable sharing that, come up with a script and just say that to people. And if they pry this, you just say, I don't want to talk about it, because it's your business.
Yeah. I got into a bit of a web of lies trying to think of different things for different people, and it was only incredibly stressful. You owe nobody any sort of explanation for your time away, your illness, anything like that. Just say, I wasn't very well, but I'm getting better now, and move on.
Yeah.
If they keep prying, just go, oh, it's really long and complicated, like I don't really feel like talking about it now. They generally won't pry.
Thank you for coming back to listen to another episode of our podcast. We hope we can reach as many people as possible and cover many more topics. Stay tuned for the third episode discussing family and relationships following discharge. Please know you're valid and not alone, and remember,
Keep stepping forward.